Welcome to episode 1, season 3 of the Filmmaker Film Watcher podcast. I'm filmmaker Richard DeGregorio.
And I am still film watcher Greg Ralph.
Well, it's great to be back, Greg. I must say, for season 3. I know we've already done the Christmas special, but I feel like this is another beginning.
Another beginning?
Another beginning.
What are we beginning?
Season 3.
oh, that. Okay.
So, Greg, tell us about this episode.
So, episode 1 of season 3, we've called Ladies' Choice.
Yeah.
The reason we've done that is that, we have domestic lives, amazing that might be as celebrities. But, so we often watch these films, at home, in the evening, on our TV, delivered however, with the women who are important in our lives. So, for example, my wife Naomi and Ricardo's partner Ninian.
Yes.
And so we decided, well, if they have to watch these films, why don't we ask them what they would like us to watch and talk about?
That's right.
So we went to Naomi and Ninian, and we went to my mum, Barbara, as well, and we said, give us some films, and we got our playlist out of that.
That's right. So the first film was your mum chose was...
To Kill a Mockingbird.
That's right. And so my partner Ninian chose Much Ado About Nothing, the Kenneth Branagh version.
Yep. And then my wife Naomi has chosen Amélie, the French international hit.
So, Greg, tell us about To Kill a Mockingbird.
Well, as I said, this film was chosen by my mum, Barbara. Hi, Mum. And curiously, I've realised it was made in the year of my birth, with a story set in the year of my dad's birth, starring my namesake, Gregory Peck. And I think Mum's trying to tell me something. But anyway, 30 years ago, Scout, Mary Badham, was a 6-year-old tomboy living in Alabama. This film provides the childhood recollections of her adult self, warmly voiced by Kim Stanley, of events surrounding her father, lawyer Atticus Finch, in their Depression-era town. Atticus is appointed by the court to defend Tom Robinson, Brock Peters, a black man accused of rape by a young white woman, Mayella Violet Ewell, and there's a southern name if ever I've heard one, played by Colin Wilcox Paxton. Although he's given the chance to wriggle out of this, Atticus takes the case, even though he knows this will be a highly unpopular choice with his townsfolk. This 1962 film tells the story of the trial and its aftermath, framed by the childhood adventures of Scout and her elder brother, Jem, played by Philip Alford. The perspectives of these and other children, amongst seismic events and smaller, more trivial ones, provide a delightful window into childhood. Other notable figures are Mayella's menacing father, Bob, played by James Anderson, and mysterious, frightening neighbour, Boo Radley, played by a young and astonishingly blonde Robert Duvall. But the film is perhaps best remembered for the Oscar-winning performance by Gregory Peck, as one of the most decent men to be portrayed in film, who has inspired people to a career in law. Many of our listeners will have studied the Pulitzer Prize-winning novel at school, as I did, and I first saw this film on a projector in the old school hall many decades ago, and I haven't seen it since. So, Ricardo, have you read or seen To Kill a Mockingbird before? And what do you think my mum is trying to tell me?
I'm not sure about that. But
that might be online therapy.
Yeah. I did study this in year 7.
Oh, okay. That's younger than me.
I was quite young. I was in year 7. And I was taken by it back then.
The book?
The book. I did watch the movie at the same time as well back then. But
as you did.
Racism to social injustice, decency and humanity. The themes of this film still resonate today. It's interesting that they decided to film this in black and white, I think for very obvious reasons.
Yes.
Which was very clever. The performances are amazing. Gregory Peck is astounding. He really is.
He's just so decent.
He is. He's very decent. He's an incredible man. He's inherently good.
Decency and goodness can sometimes be very boring in film. Yeah. And he's not.
He's not.
He's engaging.
The way he engages with his kids as well is just so special. This film is told from the kid's point of view.
And I want to come back to that, yes.
Yeah, which is another reason I love the way this is made and filmed. Okay, It's particularly in scenes like when the kids at the end get attacked by a stranger, or we don't not sure who it is at the time.
Yeah.
And the way that is shot in shadow.
Yeah.
You can't see anything. Large hands.
Like Scout can't see what's going on.
Exactly.
You have her experience.
Absolutely. And it's beautifully, beautifully filmed and made that way, and just in use of shadow and close up. And it's a wonderful film.
Over the break between our seasons, as we've been thinking about what might we do for future episodes, I've been wondering, is there an episode that would be something like films that changed my life? And I really struggle to think, well, has that ever actually happened to me? But in this moment, as you were talking about his parenting style, I would like to think, maybe my children would disagree, but I would like to think there's something of his style in my parenting, which is from the get-go, treating my children as people, rather than like kiddies, if you know what I mean. I won't claim to be as good and decent as Atticus Finch, although I did consider naming my sons Atticus. Seemed a bit too trendy at the moment, but it is such an inspirational character, and it's not just about the legal case and the aspects of the film about racism, which is the central theme. But this time around watching it, I was really struck by all the things around parenting and about the child's world and the adult's world, and I found that fascinating.
Well, in saying that, because it's taken from the child's perspective, I think everybody in this, I think all the adults, externally, everybody seems like monsters a little bit, particularly in the scene where Atticus is outside the courtroom and the kids come and save him from,
By humanising monsters.
Yes. You've got this real childhood innocence there, which it just makes everybody look stupid.
Well, I don't quite agree with the beginning part of, that thesis, if you like, the film is not just about the child's world. What I really picked up on was it moves. It goes for sequences in the child's world, then it goes to the adult's world.
Yeah, well, that's true.
For example, when the judge turns up and the kids are asleep and talks to Atticus about, look, I want you to do this case, but if you don't want to, I can kind of get you out of it.
And obviously the courtroom trial as well.
Yeah, and for the courtroom trial, which is a long sequence, you almost forget the kids are there upstairs watching. But it really does move between these two worlds. And what I picked up on this time too is the character Jem, the older brother.
Yes.
Atticus Finch. Gregory Peck won Best Actor that year at the Oscars.
Yeah, they wanted Rock Hudson for that.
For the part?
Yeah,
oh, okay.
They did.
I think, is it Mary Badham, who plays Scout, was nominated for Best Supporting Actress. She lost to Patty Duke Aston for The Miracle Worker, but, this girl who both the children had never been in films before. They were found through kind of theatrical networks. They lived literally 4 blocks away from each other in, I think, Birmingham, Alabama.
Yeah, right.
But neither of them acted before. Both the kids do a terrific job. And it's usually Scout and Atticus who get the attention. But the character of Jem, I just really tuned into him this time around. And Jem is the one who's transitioning from the child to the adult world.
Yes.
So he's the one who takes Scout and their friend Dill down to the court case to watch it. He's the one who stands up when his father leaves the courtroom with the black community upstairs, where Scout's kind of just watching.
He takes a lot of risk.
He does, and is the one who protects Scout when they're attacked. And I was watching it thinking, okay, I have to remember it's the 1930s, but why on earth were these children walking home after dark? Where was Atticus? What was Atticus? Yeah, you lose a few points there in parenting Atticus. I'm sorry.
I think it's a time thing. I mean, it's everybody knows everybody in the town. I think it's a time thing.
Yeah, and it's also, Jem, that when the really bad thing happens before the attack, just in case of someone who hasn't actually read the book or seen the film, but when that happens and Atticus goes to a group of people to tell them the news, Jem insists on going with his father. And his father says, look, no, go to bed. And Jem says, no, basically, I'm going with you. And again, it's that transition of him.
And he says okay. He says okay.
And because I think he realises that Jem is growing up as well. I think Jem is a hidden gem, if you'll pardon the pun, in the film story. And I got those other themes coming through that I just hadn't picked up on before.
It's amazing. Robert Duvall.
Oh, no.
I
never says a word in this film.
He doesn't say a word in this film, but I didn't know he was in it until I looked at the credits at the start and I went, well, who's he? I'd seen it.
Actually, he plays Scout. He's a great actor.
But his looks, it's Robert Duvall. It's wonderful. It's great to see him. It's so young. And
I had known and totally forgotten. You know, it's not something you think of as something that Robert Duvall did. And, Alice Ghostley, who plays Dill's aunt, it's just a small cameo. I've always liked Alice Ghostley. I couldn't tell you why. I've just liked her persona. And she pops up in a little bit as, this one of the Southern older bells kind of thing. There are some very good actors in this.
Tom Robinson.
Brock Crawford?
When he takes the stand.
Yes.
And he's giving his account. He's amazing.
But I think so is James Anderson, who plays Mayella's father.
He's great as well. Yeah, they're all great. But emotionally, you just believe him. You know what's going on. you just know the jury is not going to listen at all.
I think this is a very skillfully made film too. So you have the scene where you get a few insights. There's a rabid dog in town, and Atticus Finch is called down to shoot the dog because he's the best shot in the county.
Yes.
And the kids have no idea that their father is such a good shooter or even shoots really.
No, they're really shocked about it.
Yeah, and so they get a new insight in who their dad is as a person. But not long after that, you have the scene where the children, Scout's asleep but Jem's awake, are in the car while their father talks to Tom's family. And then Bob, who's quite clearly drunk and is the menacing figure, turns up and is kind of circling the car. I think that was actually a way of saying he's like the rabid dog, basically. That's who the character is.
Yeah.
And I stopped the film and I said to my younger son, I said, just look what's happened here. This is really skillful filmmaking. And I can't swear that I'm right about this, but it seems to me that without sort of saying, oh, look, he's a rabid dog, you get that parallel happening through the craft of the film.
Writing, I think it's best to read the book of this before you see the movie. I think it's one of those ones where I think you have to read the book.
And because some characters are short-changed, like Calpurnia, the housekeeper, I remember as being a much stronger character in the book, and she's kind of just there in the film, I think.
It is a very good adaptation, though. Like they've gone very close to it.
And you had to make choices. I understand that.
In terms of book to film adaptations, it is probably one of the best.
There are some little kind of stories I want to tell around the film and the book as well. So do you know the connection between this story and Truman Capote?
No.
He is Dill. So Harper Lee, the next door neighbour kid, Harper Lee, who wrote the book, he was her childhood friend, and they maintained a friendship through their life. You see it in that Philip Seymour Hoffman film in Cold Blood,
right.
And another film made on the same story as that one with Toby Stephens playing Truman Capote, where those films are based on Capote, but Harper Lee's a character in that. They were very good lifelong friends.
Oh, wow.
And he used to come during the summer to stay with his aunt, and I think he went to boarding school or something.
Oh, wow.
So that's very much based on Truman Capote. So that's trivia number one. Trivia number two is that Gregory Peck and Mary Batten, who played Scout, fostered a lifelong friendship, and they throughout their lives called each other Scout and Atticus. And when they were making the film, I think I was watching a bit of a documentary around this, and I think her parents' marriage broke up not long after this film. But when they were filming, she would go home with Gregory Peck and his wife and hang out with his kids, and so I think that comes through in the film. There is quite clearly a relationship between these two. And I have to say, there are lots of films where the child actors, they're Hollywood kids, basically.
Yep.
And even going way back, perhaps to Shirley Temple. Dill, I think, is okay in this film. Is it Walter Cunningham, the young Cunningham boy? Yeah. He's not bad in his part. But, Scout and Jem, I just think these are sterling performances from
amazing
kids
performances.
I don't think had ever made a film before.
Yeah, wow.
And didn't make a lot afterwards either. And, I think Jem, actually, I'm surprised, looking back, that he wasn't nominated for Best Supporting Actor, because I think his is a great performance. It's a very thoughtful, piece.
It is. But it's timeless. It is timeless. The themes are running today. You see it in the news every day. Black Lives Matter.
And I agree. I think, its theme makes it timeless in terms of the racism aspect. I think that's true of parenting as well. But what I also want to say about this film is that my youngest son, who's 13, I tried to get him to sit down and watch this with us. And he was like, oh, it's a black and white film. Black and white films are boring. Why didn't they make colour films back then? Blah, blah, blah. And he went off to bed. And then he came down in the middle of the night, or middle of the evening, rather, to talk to us about something. And we sat him down. And he got engaged in the story. It was around the scene of the rabid dog and either side of that.
Yes.
And he got really engaged, so he had to go to bed. So we will sit down with him and watch this properly from start to end. But I feel like the film is just such a classic film, an interesting story for a whole raft of reasons. That's part of what makes it timeless, that it can engage a more modern audience.
And it's an important film, specifically for teenagers, to really... It's a good thought-provoking film for, again, like Jem, growing up and about to enter that adult world. It's a very good thought-provoking film. It makes you think, and it made me think.
How often are you, made to read a book at school and then often to watch the film?
Yeah.
Like, certainly back in my day, when maybe films sometimes were less engaging, and it's just such a thoroughly great job of doing it.
And I'm really glad we've chosen to do this film tonight. This was
Thanks,
chosen
Mum.
because, Harper Lee did pass away not long ago. But yeah, so what's your score? What are you giving this, Greg?
I'm giving it a 9, actually.
Yeah.
And I wasn't expecting to go into this. I thought I would like it. And I remembered the story. I remember the story of, the father and the children. But I certainly remembered most of the story, I think, about, the trial and the accusation of rape and how the town reacted to it and the scene outside the jailhouse when the mob turns up. But I just forgot, maybe I never had really taken in the whole story about Jem, as well as the aspects of the parenting, that this time around really spoke to me. And it is just such a well-crafted film. And even the fact that it's, it started to speak to my younger son, to me is just such a great sign. So for me, it's a 9. What about you?
I'm giving it a 9 too. It's timeless and it's an important film. One which if they ever remake this film, I'll be very disappointed because
I know that was my fear watching it. Actually,
you can't. Atticus is Gregory Peck. It's him. You cannot. I'd say every actor, any actor in the world would go, don't give me that role. I can't beat it. How can you better that?
Yeah.
No.
But now you've said that, someone's going to do it.
Of course they will. Of course they'll want to do it. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I haven't checked IMDb whether that's already in the works, but I do. I just hope they do not do that.
I checked. So far, not.
Good.
So now we move from my mother to Ricardo's partner with a very Shakespearean name, Ninian, who's given us a very Shakespearean film to review, Much Ado About Nothing. Ricardo, take us in.
Look, Kenneth Branagh obviously loves Shakespeare. He's adapted and directed quite a few of the Bard's plays, directing a 4-hour Hamlet, Henry V, Love's Labour's Lost, Twelfth Night, As You Like It, and this delightful 1993 film, Much Ado About Nothing. Leonardo Richard Briers, a respectable nobleman, shares his house in Messina with his lovely young daughter, Hero, Kate Beckinsale, his playful niece, Beatrice, a wonderful Emma Thompson, and his elderly brother, Antonio, Brian Blessed. We begin with Leonardo preparing to welcome some friends home from war, including Prince Don Pedro, Denzel Washington, and his fellow soldiers, young nobleman Claudio, Robert Sean Leonard, and the clever and witty Benedict, Kenneth Branagh, and Don Pedro's illegitimate brother and sullen troublemaker, Don John, Keanu Reeves. Arriving at Leonardo's home, Claudio quickly falls in love with Hero, and meanwhile Benedict and Beatrice resume the war of witty insults that they have carried on with each other in the past. Claudio and Hero pledge their love to one another and decide to be married. To pass the time in the week before the wedding, the lovers and their friends decide to play a game. They manipulate Beatrice and Benedict, who are clearly meant for each other, to fall in love. Their tricks prove successful, and Beatrice and Benedict soon fall secretly in love with each other. But Don John has decided to disrupt everyone's happiness. He has his companion Baraccio, Jared Haran, make love to Margaret, Hero's serving woman, at Hero's window in the darkness of the night, and he brings Don Pedro and Claudio to watch. Believing that he's seen Hero being unfaithful to him, the enraged Claudio humiliates Hero by suddenly accusing her of lechery on the day of their wedding and abandoning her at the altar. Hero's stricken family members decide to pretend that she died suddenly of shock and grief, and to hide her away while they await for the truth about her innocence. Fortunately, the night watchmen overhear Baraccio bragging about his crime to his colleague, Conrad, Richard Clifford. The heads of the local police, Dogberry and Vergas, a hilarious Michael Keaton and Ben Elton, ultimately arrest both Baraccio and Conrad. Benedict and Beatrice finally confess their love to one another. Everyone learns that Hero is really innocent. Claudio and Hero fall in love again, and all is well again in the world. Look, it's a really enjoyable play, and with its star-studded cast, makes for a wonderful film that leaves a smile on your face. Greg.
You're worried about my response, aren't you?
I am.
How dare you even suspect that I would diss the film that Ninian chose? Come on. No, I really like this film.
Yeah.
I think this has one of the most wonderful openings of any film I've seen. The black screen with the words of Shakespeare coming up.
Yeah.
Read, I love Emma Thompson. And she just reads it so beautifully. I sometimes hear her in my head saying those words at other times when I think of this film. And then it opens up onto that beautiful Italian countryside. Everyone's just lolling on the hillside while Emma Thompson's reading, sitting in a tree. And everyone, all these, well-known British actors at different points in their career, they all look so young, so tan, so healthy, so relaxed and enjoying life. It's just an idyllic, glorious landscape and opening to the film.
You only the locations are so important in movies, and with a location like that, you don't have to do much. You just got to point the camera at that location. It's such a beautiful. It's Florence, Italy. It's Tuscany. Oh my goodness!
The other thing I like about the opening of the film is that what you are first watching are Shakespeare's words, and there's a real problem, I think, in putting on a Shakespearean play or filming a Shakespearean play. The language can be a real barrier in a way it wasn't, 500 years ago. So, if ever I read or more typically watch, live or on film, a Shakespearean play, I have to just kind of let it all wash over me and pick out the bits of the language I actually understand and the story.
Well, in saying that, I've performed Shakespeare before and I've seen a lot of Shakespeare, and I think Shakespeare is very easy if it's performed well and if the actor knows what they're talking about and the intention's there, then it's completely clear. If it's not, it's just garble and it's words and you won't. And I think there's a few times, I'll get into Branagh's performance in this, because I think everybody is very good in this. I think Keanu Reeves was harshly done by...
I don't. I actually think he's a dead point in the
film. No. I think there's not a lot to do with that role. And I think because he came off Bill and Ted's and everything at that point, everyone just went, oh, Keanu Reeves is that role? Oh, doing Shakespeare. I don't think he was that bad. But... a little bit wooden, perhaps, but not as bad as what the reviews were saying.
We'll come back to that.
We'll come back. But in terms of Branagh, I really love Branagh as a director. I love his 4-hour Hamlet. But again, this is the same thing applies to what I'm about to say. Is Branagh is fantastic in performing Shakespeare with other people when he's reacting off other people. But I find him quite difficult and quite over the top when he's doing his monologues to himself. It sounds a bit garbled to me and not completely clear about what he's talking about, whereas with everybody else, he's fine. He obviously knows Shakespeare very well, and he loves Shakespeare. He's like Laurence Olivier of the 80s and 90s today.
Coincidentally, I saw Much Ado About Nothing live a couple of weeks before I sat down to watch this. I've watched parts of Joss Whedon's recent remake of the film, and as I told you, I went and watched Kenneth Branagh's film version only about 5 years after this of Love's Labour's Lost, where he turns a Shakespearean comedy into a 1930s musical. So let me say with all the authority of that expertise, I think a Shakespearean comedy as opposed to a tragedy is very hard to film well. So having seen the live show, what I thought was fantastic about that was, first of all, they built in a little prologue for Constable Dogberry to really kind of establish that character in more modern kind of parlance, to get the audience kind of revved up. And then you can perform that performance on stage, I think, in a larger kind of way and kind of emphasise parts of the comedy in a way that works in that audience context, but would look bad on film. Love's Labour's Lost, if we were reviewing that film, I'd probably give it a 2 or 3 out of 10. Every now and then something interesting starts to happen and it just falls over.
It struggled to get a release, that film. It got very badly reviewed.
And I now know why.
Yeah.
And to me, it's almost like totally different directors made that. And this film, Much Ado About Nothing, which I really like.
Oh, it's beautifully directed, this is. Beautifully directed.
I think one of the great achievements of this is it makes that comedy very accessible to a modern audience. It's basically a rom-com, really, with some darker themes in it.
Yeah.
But it's beautifully done. And, part of that's the location. Part of that is the wonderful set of actors that we can probably talk about, except for Keanu Reeves. And
come on.
And part of that is the camera work. Some of the camera work here I love. So when Balthazar is singing his song, Sigh No More, Ladies Sigh No More, next to the fountain, everyone's sitting around, and the camera's just kind of languidly swooping in a sustained take around the people in that garden.
That's right. Well,
the torch procession at night, the close-up of Benedict and Beatrice immediately before the wedding is a lovely close-up. And the final wedding,
shot,
it goes for just over 2.5 minutes.
Yeah,
where the camera is in the garden, goes through people through a tunnel, into another space, then goes through the tunnel again, and then up into the heavens after tracing its way through all the mazes.
That's right. Yeah,
it's a fantastic
even
shot.
the ball with the masks and the commedia masks.
One of my critiques of Love's Labour's Lost is that the camera work is almost ham-fisted. It's very sustained. There's too many long shots. I don't think he actually knows knows how to film dance in that sense. These films really are chalk and cheese. Pleased to have seen it, but not a great admirer. But he just does such a wonderful job that everything, almost everything, for me, really ticks over in the film.
Yeah.
But not Keanu Reeves. In the Joss Whedon version, I'm not sure if I failed to pick it up earlier in the other versions or whether Joss Whedon's actually changed it somehow, but that film makes clear, you know how the soldiers are coming back from war. Do you know who the war was with?
No.
It was Don John's character trying to uprise against his brother, at least in that version.
Right, okay, yeah, right.
So Don John, if that's true all the way across the different versions, I just don't know, Don John is meant to be an evil character who, is being thwarted in his ambitions. He decides to take it out on the people around him, his brother and those his brother loves, and just mess everything up.
You didn't get that from Keanu Reeves?
Keanu Reeves, to me, seemed like a sullen teenager, just a bit sulky at the party and decides to stuff things up. He did not work for me in the slightest. It's not because he just came off Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, which I actually haven't seen.
Yeah. No, but at that time, he was very much for
I think he's done more interesting things since. And so as an actor, I find him interesting.
He has.
So it's not my perception of him being limited to a certain kind of role. I just don't think he was right for the part. He was too nothing.
You're not the first, I think, person or reviewer to
Well, he was nominated for a Golden Raspberry Award for worst supporting actor.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit unfair, though. I don't think he's that bad.
We will agree to disagree.
Yeah, I think so. He had a gravity. It wasn't the worst performance I've seen on film.
I actually...
It wasn't Elizabeth Berkley on Showgirls. I mean, come on.
Oh, we must review that sometime. I actually... I didn't find the Americans compelling in this, with a couple of exceptions. And
Hang on, who?
Well, I'm going to come to that. In the same way, years ago I saw Ian McKellen's Richard III.
Yeah, which I loved.
Yeah, but I didn't think Annette Bening and Robert Downey Jr. were that great in that either. I don't want to over-theorise here as I want to do, but English actors and perhaps Australian actors and others as well, they grow up and they learn in Shakespeare. Shakespeare's part of the canon, and they learn how to deliver iambic pentameter, the Shakespearean metre of language. And sometimes it just feels really foreign in the mouths of American actors, whether they just haven't had that same kind of cultural upbringing. Yeah,
and it does.
In this film, Robert Sean Leonard as Claudio, or maybe Claudio, I thought he was a bit out of his depth. Denzel Washington I thought was great in the first half of the film, and then I thought all he was really doing was standing around and watching stuff.
Well, he was. And that's the character. I mean, that's not his fault.
Well, I don't think that's true, because the stage production I saw, the guy who played Don Pedro there was really good and had lots to do as the play progressed. So it might have been the direction. Well, that's right. I know Brenner cut the play quite a bit as well.
Yeah, but also you can in a theatre show watch that person and watch what he's doing. I mean, in a film you're cutting back and forth, so you're probably not getting as much as what you would in a stage show.
So I thought he was a really interesting casting choice as Don Pedro.
Yeah, so do I. Yeah.
And I was watching thinking, now he's black and Claudio is white. How is Hero not going to realise who's who? And they did it beautifully by he's wore this full body kind of cloak and mask,
that's right.
basically.
Yes.
So I thought he was actually a great choice. I just felt like he was given less to do in the second half. And I came and went a bit about Michael Keaton. I know you really liked it from what you were saying at the start.
I really liked Michael Keaton in the role. I didn't mind him at all. I didn't know what else you could do with the role. I think that it was very pretty good.
Beetlejuice.
Yeah. Yes, it was.
And a bit of Monty Python there with the galloping around.
The invisible horse which is great because they're all
So I started off watching thinking, oh yeah, and then it did grow on me. But I just felt like I thought Kate Beckinsale, her hero part, I think, must have been cut because it felt like she had less to do as well.
She doesn't have that much to do in the film, but all really Hero's role there is to be beautiful and
to set up Beatrice.
Lovely and to set up Beatrice. That's it. And Emma Thompson,
this is wonderful.
It's just
She's
you
beyond
just
wonderful.
Want to watch her.
And they are so believable as a couple.
They are.
They were married at that point.
They were.
Didn't last much longer beyond that, but
well, they did another film together called Dead Again.
Was it before or after?
I think it was after. I think it was a thriller, which is very good, actually.
I'm a big fan of Dead Again, actually.
Yeah.
With Derek Jacobi as well.
Yeah, that's right. It's a good movie.
I've watched it a few times.
It's a good thriller. It's very good.
But in this film, they're totally believable as this sparring couple who then, it's a bit of a plot device that they fall so suddenly and so gloriously. But Brenner does a lot with that. There's a shot of him dancing around the fountain while she's on the swing and they're cut with the landscape.
Right, yeah.
So it's handled beautifully. And I'm not sure what I did go off him on his soliloquies. Every now and then he was his voice was a bit almost arch or something.
Yeah.
But no, I thought they were wonderful performances.
So you didn't find Brenner to be a tiny bit Shakespeare and what would I know?
No, look, maybe every now and then, but I think that's much more on display in Love's Labour's Lost.
Is it really? Right.
Well, something. You know, it was really interesting. There was a great scene there where the four men who are in this old library in Love's Labour's Lost start singing, heaven, I'm in heaven. And they swoop up into this dome, which is painted with, the blue night sky and golden stars. And I thought, oh, this is getting interesting. And straight away, we cut out to the courtyard where the couples are dancing in 30s kind of, tuxedos and gowns. And I thought, I don't think you get it. Like, I was starting to think of that scene in La La Land when they dance up into the planetarium, which is a beautiful scene.
Beautiful scene, yeah.
And he started to get it, and then he just didn't. And his performance in that was he was trying to be this kind of 1930s character with a bit of just, Brenner in it. I might have a couple of quibbles in Much Ado, but I just think the whole thing is judged really well.
Yeah, it is, and it's directed very well. He can direct. He's very good. I mean, I'm a big fan of his Hamlet.
I haven't seen his Shakespearean dramas on film, actually, none of those. We've talked about the fact I've never seen Hamlet.
I saw it at the Astor Cinema in 70mm, and it's the only way you can see it is in 70mm. It was shot in 70mm. It's got your Charlton Heston, Billy Crystal, Jack Lemmon,
And
Brian
I know
Blessed
how
is
you
in
are
it.
about Billy Crystal.
That's right.
Well, Brian Blessed in this, again, he didn't have a lot to do.
He doesn't. But
There's a number of people who look fantastic and they play the parts well. So you've got Brian Blessed, you've got Imelda Staunton, you've got...
Yes, I didn't mention Imelda Staunton.
No, and you've got Emma Thompson's mother's in that, Felita Law playing Ursula, and then Ben Elton, rather. You've got these people who, they're just great in the roles, but not a lot to do. And I kind of wonder if Branagh said, I'm making a film. We're filming in Tuscany, just south of Florence. We're going to have a great time. You're all going to get a beautiful tan.
Yep.
Emma will be there. Emma's mum will be there.
We'll have an amazing...
We're doing Shakespeare.
Exactly.
And they all just went for the adventure. I can totally believe that could have happened.
I think that would have been the best film shoot.
I think so too, actually.
It looked like everybody was having fun. And except for Keanu Reeves, maybe.
Yeah.
But for your part.
Yeah, but, you do one of those family holidays in Tuscany, there's always a sulky teenager spoiling it for everybody. And I do want to do one plug.
Sure.
And that is where the film is actually filmed. Because I thought, this is beautiful. And so, I did the good old Google kind of thing. So this is the villa, you'll do this better in Italian than I will, Vigna Maggio, south of Florence. Supposedly owned by the real-life Mona Lisa's cousins.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and you can stay there. So when I Googled it the other day, it's about $250, $300 a night. That might be US dollars for local listeners. Yeah. But, that's on my hit list now, my bucket list. I would love to go and stay there and just wander. It just is so gorgeous.
That it is.
The other thing about this film is the music. So Patrick Doyle, who I think has scored just about every Branagh film.
He's a very good composer,
including... the Marvel films that Branagh's done and so on. The music in this is just fantastic. And, the song, Sigh No More, Ladies Sigh No More, is a beautiful piece.
It is a gorgeous piece, actually. But what are you going to give this, Greg? What is your...
Well, you were a bit nervous as we came into this
I
little
was,
discussion.
actually, yeah, I was.
Where did you think I was going to land? Cabaret territory on 3?
Yeah, no, I thought it might have been
Showgirls
a 4
on half?
or a 5.
I'm giving it an 8.
Oh, wow, okay.
I really do like this film. As I say, I just love the opening. It's just so... perfectly judged. And I could watch almost anything with Emma Thompson in it. I probably have. And it's got a great cast. It's beautiful. The camera work is interesting.
Yeah.
It comes down a little bit for me because there are a few moments of Kenneth Branagh. I think on reflection, you're probably right. And as I say, Keanu Reeves for me just does not work. I think Sean Leonard could have been a bit better. I would have liked a bit more hero, So I have quibbles.
Yeah.
But I think the major achievement of this film is it does take a Shakespearean comedy and it makes it accessible to a modern audience. And that is no small achievement.
And I also think it hasn't dated. It's still very good.
Yes, that's true.
It's great now.
Films of the 90s are at that dateable kind of period.
They are, but again, you could watch this one and still really enjoy it.
Even if you were made to watch it at school, you would probably still enjoy it.
Exactly. I'm going to give it a 7.
Okay, so I liked it more.
You liked it? Well, it sounds like...
Wait till I turn in.
Look, honestly, I think it's a very good movie, and it makes me smile a lot and whatnot.
Yes.
But you're going into classic territory when I sort of go to 8 to 10, and I don't think it hits there. You're right, there are some quibbles in it, but it's still such an enjoyable film. But 7's still a high score.
7-8, it's not a big difference.
7-8, yeah. Well, there's a bit on that. I think there's you're going in from low to classic. I think the 7 to the 8 gap is quite.
I think that you are making Much Ado About Nothing.
So the third Ladies' Choice film chosen by Greg's wife Naomi is the 2001 film Amélie.
Or to translate its original French title, The Fabulous Destiny of Amélie Poulain. Regardless of title, Amélie is the 20-something child of odd parents. After her mother is killed by an American flinging herself off Notre Dame Cathedral, Amélie is raised by her distant father and lives an independent and fantasy-fueled childhood. She now lives a sheltered existence, working as a waitress in the Montmartre district of Paris, but still with a rich fantasy life, imagining such things as the number of orgasms happening around her at any point in time. Her life is changed by a chain of events when she learns of the death of the Queen of Hearts, Lady Diana, in Paris. And while the world around her mourns the loss of this romantic figure, Amélie becomes one herself, fulfilling others' fantasies and opening them up to new possibilities. Curiously, Amélie herself is not open to love and romance, but she becomes intrigued by a man who collects torn-up photos from photo booths around central Paris. And she discovers that he keeps an album of these discarded self-portraits, which you could say represents people's rejection of their reality in favour of more romantic self-images. But we might leave that for a thesis better saved for student essays. Regardless, Amélie slowly opens herself up to her own possibilities, while playing both Cupid and avenging angel in the lives of those around her, and solving the mystery of the man whose photo is discovered torn and discarded at multiple booths around Paris. This 2001 film was directed and co-written by Jean-Pierre Jeunet, the director of such international art house hits as Delicatessen and The City of Lost Children, as well as 2013's US film curiosity, The Young and Prodigious T.S. Spivet, which I enjoyed. Amélie has certainly been Jeunet's biggest hit, much loved by many people, and it made an international star of his heroine, played by Audrey Tautou, who is highly reminiscent of her namesake, Audrey Hepburn. Ricardo, how did you find Amélie?
Well, don't forget Mark Currow, who was the co-director of Delicatessen and City of Lost Children. I feel like he gets lost there, and people say that it's just his film.
So no, the City of Lost collaborators.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So let's not forget Mark Currow. Look, it's whimsical, charming, bright, and just full of heart, this film. I love this movie a lot. I love Genet's direction. I think it's flawlessly directed. I love the way he moves the camera. I don't think there's many static shots in this. In terms of static shots, he moves the camera quite a lot, even for just simple push-ins. Okay, the next time you watch it, okay, try and count how many straight push-ins there are on characters. There are so many. There's no camera pans during these push-ins either. They are locked off.
We'll put notes on our website to explain some of this later on.
Okay,
right?
Sure thing. The screenplay is also flawless. It hits every target of its first act, second act turning points flawlessly, and its beginning, its opening is very quick. I love the opening of the movie, explaining who she is as a little girl. I mean, how gorgeous is that little girl? She's beautiful. It's a wonderful opening. To the colour palette of the cinematography, the greens and the reds. Now, when you look at cinematography, it's not just about a filter. You look at the art direction of this as well. The greens and the reds are all in the art direction as well. So so much has been thought about in this movie and planned to a T. The imagination of Amélie, her performance of Audrey Tautou. I mean, it made her a star.
Yes,
I mean,
and deservedly so.
Deservedly so. She's just beautiful. There's beautiful moments in there when she discovers the box underneath the tile in the bathroom.
That belonged to a boy 40 years ago.
That's right. That she says, they say this moment dramatically changed her life, and then they have Diana who's passed away, and that the news of her death, and you think that that's it. But then she drops the ball and it hits the tile, and no, it's not it. She turns it off after knowing that. All the supporting characters are interweaved in this so beautifully. All the stories about her in the Windmill Cafe, the guy who she's looking for who owns this box, and that story, which you think is going to go for the whole film, but it's only just part of story.
And it's left suspended until the very end.
Yes. That's right, which is beautiful. It's a gorgeous moment at the very end. I won't spoil it. It's beautiful. It's flawless to me. Greg,
yes.
Well, you've got...
Okay,
come on.
Okay, heresy alert.
What?
I didn't love it.
What?
I've seen this before. Apologies to my wife Naomi, because although I'm not sure that she was engaged this time
Greg,
as well.
you can't.
This of the three.
You were tired.
No,
You were sleepy.
no.
No.
You and I have talked about the fact I tried watching it and I fell asleep and I was very tired.
Yeah.
So I made sure when I really sat down to watch it, I was not tired. It wasn't that. Of the three films that we had chosen for us, all of which I'd seen before, this is the one I was most looking forward to.
Yeah.
Second time around didn't do it for me. And I know that's heresy because I know so many people just love this film.
Oh, I was smiling again through it, laughing.
It's got a great sense of whimsy. It's got a great sense of visuals.
And again, location as well, Paris.
Well, the location can be better. I mean, you hit all your marks.
You do. They didn't go to the Eiffel Tower, I don't think.
Well,
Did you
actually,
see
I
it?
watched the little film he made before this, and the Eiffel Tower, from memory, featured in that. But you've got Montmartre, you've got
Yes.
Notre Dame.
Yes.
You've got zipping around the streets of Paris on a little motorbike, very reminiscent of Roman Holiday with Gregory Peck and Audrey Hepburn. May have been a bit of Audrey reference there, who knows? So you hit all the marks in terms of a French film that's going to be, an art house and beyond international success. And I don't want that to sound too cynical. It just ticks the boxes. It's set in this little cafe where, it's the little French community and the different characters, in a very modern sense, the characters. The visual metaphors, like when she turns to water at a key moment and just kind of collapses on the floor of the cafe, or when she gets the key cut and you see it kind of glowing through her pocket all the way through, or the ball rolling that falls off, I think, a bottle of perfume or something, rolls across the bathroom floor and hits that tile, all perfectly judged visually. And, when I sat down to write the introductory part of this episode about the film, and I started thinking, there's a lot in here it says about romance. At the start of the film, thinking, why are we going on about Princess Di? Or as they say, Lady Di.
Lady
Di. I think, that I'd forgotten she was the Queen of Hearts. That was the title she really got around the time of the funeral, which is about 4 years before this film was made. I was puzzling over that. Why is that there? And then I thought, and you saw the story not only on her TV, but on the news rack at that little corner.
And they mention it quite a few times in there.
And I think it is, that the Queen of Hearts has died, and now you've got this new figure who's becoming this new romantic figure. So I think there's more to the story than I certainly picked up on the first time around, when you really are captured by, the whimsy and that visual sensibility and so on. The story just, it stopped working for me.
Which section?
Well, pretty early on. The early stuff about her child and so on, and all the things about, this person likes this, they don't like that. She likes dipping her hand into the grain of millet. No, but I like that. I thought that was a very sensual kind of thing.
That's the setup. And the first act is very good. I mean, that's the first 15 minutes.
And the suicidal goldfish.
Yeah,
it is very funny.
Yeah, that's right.
It was... I felt like the story was overtaken by the visuals, and it reminded me a lot of a film that you and I saw years ago, Michel Gondry's Mood Indigo, which Audrey Tautou was also in.
Oh no, I think this is
that had a really great visual sensibility.
It does, but no, I don't.
No, the story's much stronger here.
It's a lot stronger, and I think that
but I had the same kind of response at the time around, which was, I feel like the story has suffered a bit. So, on one level, you could really look at Amelie and say, she's a bit of a psycho. Like, she's grown up in this really weird family, and she's breaking into people's apartments, she's spying on them, she's playing practical jokes.
Very dangerous practical jokes with the electrical.
You took the words out of my mouth. She's manipulating people's emotions.
Yes.
She's setting a stalker up with a woman that she works with.
Yes.
And she falls in love with and totally obsesses over a stranger. So you could actually read this film in a very different way and say, they live happily ever after on the motorbike, but what happens next? Like, she could be an absolute psycho. She completely plays with her father in a very lovely way, but she plays with her father like she's becomes this very manipulative character.
Amelie 2, the thriller.
Amelie 2. I'll come back to that. I'm sure I'll think of something. But that's okay. It's not meant to be read that way, and you could read it that way, but she's a bit more than a bit odd. But
she's internal, and I think.
But there's all that whimsy all the way through. But I felt like there were too many story elements left unresolved.
Which ones?
The grocer. So the grocer, she plays the practical jokes on because he's being, nasty to the guy who works for him.
Where could you go from there?
I would have liked to have seen him have some kind of change of heart. Like, she's doing this stuff to him.
But he doesn't learn from it.
Yeah, and it's funny, particularly the first time you see it. He doesn't learn from it.
She does it twice.
But he has no reason to learn from it. Like, bad things are happening to him, but there's nothing to make him connect that with his own behaviour, other than when she makes a nasty comment about him. I wondered if we were going to get resolution of the story of the man whose boyhood box she found, and you're right, that does tie off nicely.
It does tie off very nicely at the end. Yeah.
The story about the stalkery guy and the tobacconist woman.
Yep.
I'd forgotten that actually fell apart. Like, I remember that she sets them up and they have
Yes.
this amazing sex scene out in the toilet
Yeah, it's
where
funny.
everything's rattling and so on.
That's right, yeah.
Which is, I think, a bit reminiscent of Delicatessen as well. But anyway, it's nicely done. But Georgette and whatever the stalker guy's name was, who's the actor, Dominic Pignon, who's in a lot of his films.
Yeah, who's in Delicatessen and City of Lost.
And probably almost everything Genet's made, I think.
Yeah.
He's almost his kind of everyman, but he's quite a dark character here. And it's interesting that the story is saying that you've got these two people who have quite significant character flaws, stalkery and hypochondriac. They fall in love, they have amazing sex out the back, it's all exchange glances, but then once the honeymoon period's over, the reality of their lives reassert themselves.
That's
They're
right.
totally unsuited. So I think that was okay in terms of resolution.
That could have kept that story just as it was. They got together and everything was fine, but they didn't decide to do that. They didn't.
But even the things at the very start, so you have these kind of throwaway facts of the man whose friend died and he's scrubbing him out of his dress book, and the fly that lands on a tablecloth that's kind of dancing in the wind.
Yeah.
And then they do it again right at the very end with the nuns playing basketball.
Basketball,
and somebody else and something else. That I think what they're saying is these inconsequential facts, just happen around us all the time.
Yeah.
But particularly ones at the start, I kept waiting for the payoff and it didn't come. And I thought,
Oh, I love when she leaves the box in the phone booth.
Yeah.
And he finds it there and finds his little pieces and it goes back into his memory. And
yes,
that's all just
and
wonderful.
he gets weepy.
Yeah, it's
and
beautiful.
Look, I'll tell you now, I'm going to give this a harsh score, and maybe that's partly a response to the fact I really thought I'd love it more.
Good. It's too good to give it a harsh score, Greg. No. It works on every level.
No, not for me.
Every level.
Not for me.
Oh, no, I disagree with this. No, I disagree with you giving Emily
You're not
anything but a lovely score.
You are not.
No.
You are not allowed to change my scores.
This is a beautiful film. It's it's just like she's eating raspberries. It's a raspberry. It's a beautiful film. It's lovely.
Where are the raspberries?
Oh, she's eating the raspberries off her fingers at the very beginning.
Are they raspberries?
Yeah, raspberries.
I thought they were funny kind of cheesels.
They're red. They're raspberries.
I couldn't work out what they were. I watched that scene twice. I couldn't work out what it was. I thought some unique French cheesy snack or something.
I really think from direction, from cinematography, from art direction to screenplay to performances, it's flawless.
So you were going to give it
a 10.
A 10.
I think it's a classic. I think it's wonderful.
Oh, good Lord!
I don't have that many flawless films where I go, "What was awful about that movie?" I love it. It's really enjoyable.
2.
What? You what?
Nice.
You can't.
No,
Give me a break. Oh my goodness!
I'm just priming
me.
you so that what I actually give it is not quite so.
Oh my goodness! I mean,
perilous.
Cabaret giving 4.
3.
You get 3. You get 4 to Cabaret.
Yeah, 3 or 4. Yeah.
Oh, gee, if you had to give him 3, I would have jumped off the chair.
7.
You're giving Emily 7?
Yeah. And I say I was really looking forward to it.
That's not a low score. That's not too bad.
Well, could have been worse, yes. But I wasn't thinking it was being a 10, but I thought it might be up around 8, a high 8 or a 9. And then it just, I kind of feel like I peeked behind the curtain. There were just things that started to irritate me about it. And it's got all this beauty. It's a beautiful film. It's a delightfully whimsical film. And yet I just kind of felt like the things that in the story that just weren't quite thought through.
One thing that really I get from it, and I love, is that you're seeing her do all these things for other people. Also doing harsh things to other people as well, but doing good for other people as well. We have the blind man when she leads the blind man.
Well,
I love that moment.
Thing. And then he glows, and that never paid off either. I thought, is he an angel that's going to kind of intervene in her life?
No, it was just a moment where she gives this blind man takes him through the streets and gives him a sensory overload.
Again, it didn't quite work, but I did. I was a bit AC/DC about it, but I did actually like the bit where she stole the landlady's letters and made a fake letter from her dead husband
so that's
to give her payoff, now, and to fulfil her romantic illusions.
I think you're being quite harsh. I think they do pay off a lot in this film. There were
too many that didn't, and I just kind of felt...
The grocer, I really didn't care about. I mean, I was like, okay, he's an ass. He's not great.
Yeah.
And he always just... that the poor.
But it's a major part of the
artist,
story.
the artist, he pays off beautifully. He prompts her to take a chance because she does all this great good for people and whatnot. And then suddenly, when she has to move forward and she's stuck, I get her when she cries when she does fall into a heap of water.
Yeah,
because she can't bring herself to move forward and take that next step. I get it.
There were just loose ends that this time around really irritated me. And I said at the start, this is an heretical statement. I know that because I know this is a very treasured film, and for you, it's a 10.
Yes, it is. It's beautiful.
And I want you to know, Ricardo, that I respect that you're giving it a 10.
Yes.
If that doesn't sound too patronising.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Because I was trying to be patronising. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. The one thing I just feel about this film is there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it.
Yeah.
At all. From colour palette to the way they've put this film together and the story and all the beautiful interweaving of the characters, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like Amelie. Amelie is Amelie. It just sits there as a film which nothing is like, in my eyes.
So that concludes the first episode of Season 3, and in classic fashion for us, we've started with a little bit of controversy.
It's just a little.
So let's move swiftly on and talk about our next episode.
That's right. So the next episode, we are going to delve into Western territory, because we haven't really done that many Westerns.
I'm not a big Westerns person.
Yeah.
And when we were reflecting between Seasons 2 and this season, we were saying, last season we didn't do as many confession kind of films.
That's right.
Which are the films that either or both of us have never seen before. And that can bring out, unlike the Amelie experience where I go back and look at it totally afresh and have a different response, as we just established. These are films that one or both of us have not seen but fit into that genre of Westerns.
I think this is great. We're having a Western Confessions episode.
Yeah. So we're going to start with John Ford's apparently seminal classic, 1956, The Searchers, which
I
neither of us ever seen.
No, that's definitely a shared confession.
But I certainly read and hear about it as being, a very foundational film for Westerns and beyond in American film and others.
I think it's great to start with the John Ford film because he made a lot of classic.
I'm not actually sure if I've ever seen any of his films.
Okay,
actually.
well there we go.
I know I haven't seen Stagecoach, and I'm not sure I've seen any of them. And our second film will be the spaghetti western. Can I say?
Yeah, of course, it has to be. Sergio Leone's The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which
1966, which I haven't seen.
But I love,
and you can't believe that I haven't seen.
I can't believe,
This is your Italian heritage coming through again. And then finally, a film that Ricardo hasn't seen, and I think either I've seen a long time ago or just bits of, but 1969's Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Yep.
Which is good old Paul Newman and Robert Redford in George Roy Hill's film.
I've never seen it.
With a script by William Goldman, who's written a number of classic films, including The Princess Bride, which is one of my up there films.
Yeah, very funny.
So
one of your favourites.
So we're going from the lady's choice to perhaps classic, male kind of territory.
Well, with Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, my father-in-law actually said to me only last week. He said, "Oh, and Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid," and I said, "Oh, I haven't seen that one." And he said, "Well, you're very lucky." So I'm looking forward to that one.
One of those big Hollywood films of the 70s, like The Sting with the same two lead actors, that very kind of much mark out the territory of the 70s.
Oh, I'm really looking forward to that one.
So that's next time.
See you later.